You're a witness. I know that might be alarming, but as soon as you awoke from your bed this morning, you became a witness to everything around you. From an early age, thanks to my dad, who's a sheriff, I've always been fascinated by true crime and how one person's memory can determine another person's fate. An important part of eyewitness testimony is a process called memory encoding, and that is when our brain retrieves and stores information during the time of an event. Now you might be asking, how is this relevant to me? Well, in the future, you may need to testify in court, and knowing how memory encoding works can help with your recall. Now you might be asking, well, what if I never have to testify? Someone else's eyewitness account could also affect your future or that of your loved ones. Memory encoding can affect eyewitness testimony by the level of stress, the environmental conditions, and the level of attention during the time of encoding. In the next few minutes, it will become evident that the way we process and store information impacts our ability to recall it in the future. First, memory encoding affects eyewitness accounts due to the level of stress of the person. In other words, stress can overwhelm an eyewitness, which can lead to focusing on immediate threats rather than important details, resulting in gaps in memory encoding, which affects an eyewitness testimony later in court. Stressful situations lead to the creation of false memories. In a journal article written by Philip U. Gustafson, Taurus Linden, and Frederick U. Johnson titled Eyewitness Accuracy and Retrieval Efforts, Effect of Time and Repetition on the National Library of Medicine's website, they state incorrect memories are harder to retrieve than correct ones, allowing more to be forgotten. Second, memory encoding affects eyewitness accounts due to the environmental conditions around the person, like poor lighting, which weakens the encoding process because reduced visibility leads to misinterpretation of details. For example, a witness in dim lighting may only see shadows, which can lead to them confusing individuals who are actually involved in the event. Also, proximity to the scene of an incident can distort an eyewitness's memory. In the journal article entitled Innocence Project, Jathan Kendrick exonerated after 25 years in prison for 1994 Queen's murder, written November 21st of 2020, Jathan Kendrick was wrongfully accused by a witness who was in his apartment from over 100 feet away. Now, let me show you a clip from CBS Morning News of a man who was also a victim of faulty eyewitness testimony.
Good morning. Of those who've been exonerated by DNA evidence, nearly 3/4 of them were convicted in the first place because of faulty eyewitness testimony. What happened to Royal Clark Jr., you will understand why.
I could never imagine going home. I thought I was going to die up there.
Royal Clark was 24 years old when he was charged and later convicted of an armed robbery at this Burger King in November 2001 in Terrytown, Louisiana. Did you rob that Burger King?
Man, I didn't want to know where Burger King was.
The assailant used a cup seen in this crime scene photo and left fingerprints, but the prints were determined to be unusable. 3 Burger King employees picked Clark from a photo lineup, but by trial, only one of them, a 19-year-old, was sure. What does that feel like when you know you weren't there and this witness is saying, it looks like him?
Like everything shut down at that moment. Everything got quiet.
The witness, who was the same race as the robber and got a good look at him, convinced the jurors. Royal Clark was convicted and sentenced to 49.5 years. Good morning.
Lastly, memory encoding affects eyewitness accounts due to attention levels of the person. Distractions can lead to misinformation, such as weapons that take attention away from other important details. For example, during a robbery, a witness is going to focus on a gun that is pointed at them, which can later cause them to misinterpret a mustache for a beard. Boaz Sanjero, in his journal article, applying the stamp safety model to prevent false conviction based on eyewitness misidentification in the spring 2020 issue of Albany Law Review, states mistaken eyewitness testimony has emerged as the primary cause of wrongful convictions. However, focused attention leads to better memory retention. Your brain will actually encode long-term memory when you focus on specific information. In their June 2008 survey published in the North American Journal of Psychology titled Eyewitness Testimony in Civil Litigation, Retention, Suggestion, and Misinformation is Product Identification, Trent J. Terrell and Charles A. Weaver III emphasized the reliability of long-term memory for incident details, which are increasingly relevant in court. Also, dopamine release actually allows for vivid recollection of information as well. In the last few minutes, I have gone over several ways eyewitness testimony can be affected by memory encoding. Let's review. First, memory encoding affects eyewitness accounts due to the level of stress of the person. For example, stress can overwhelm an eyewitness. Second, memory encoding affects eyewitness accounts due to environmental conditions. For example, poor lighting weakens the encoding process. Third, memory encoding affects eyewitness accounts due to the attention levels of the person. For example, distractions during encoding can lead to misinformation to eyewitness testimony. Ultimately, the reliability of eyewitness testimony depends on the accuracy of human memory, but the consequences of mistaken memory can last a lifetime, affecting not only the individuals involved, but the broader justice system and public trust in legal proceedings. Thank you.